From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition.
Live from the CBS studios in San Francisco, I'm Brian Heck.
And I'm Andrea Nakano. We start in Maui, where survivors in Lahaina are returning home to see firsthand the destruction left behind by this week's wildfires. Mostly it is grim. Much of the town of 13,000 is in ruins this afternoon. At least 80 people have been killed, making this the deadliest natural disaster in the state's history. The death toll is expected to rise as search and rescue efforts are underway. 3 fires remain active. More than 2,000 buildings have been damaged or destroyed.
And more than 12,000 people are still without power in Lahaina. They just cannot grasp the enormity of it. Displaced residents are taking refuge at evacuation shelters and getting help from the Red Cross. Closer to home, the Bay Area Aloha Festival saw a boost in attendance this year in light of the Maui firestorm. Organizers say the celebratory event also took on a new role to try to help with relief efforts, and they got some help from a local Olympic figure skater. Dial in and talk to a woman who flew back to the Bay Area this morning after losing a family member in the fire.
Some of the folks working the booths have families affected by the Maui fires, but they say this is not the time to grieve. That will come later. They want to use this venue to support the survivors. Among the thousands of people working and attending the Bay Area Aloha Festival is Jasmine Contreras. She flew out of Kauai Friday night and arrived back to her Bay Area home Saturday morning.
Said, hey, which foundation can we support, right? So we're directing everyone to Maui Strong.
She was in Hawaii visiting family and working for the Hawaii Chamber of Commerce of Northern California Foundation, where she is a board member.
It knocked out cell coverage. So you couldn't hear from anybody. You just didn't really know what was going on. So I found out later the week that we did unfortunately have someone who passed away. That was rough. I mean, still not, it's surreal. And it's one of those, how can we help the rest of the family in Maui?
Her uncle died in a car trying to escape flames. She's turned the family grief into strength.
Thinking, okay, how can I be helpful but not a hindrance?
She's exhausted from the flight back, but says no way she would miss this opportunity to rally the Bay Area to help survivors.
If I can divert any attention back to the people who need help, I want to do that.
Organizers noticed an increase in foot traffic in this year's festival compared to last. The annual Aloha Festival in San Mateo County is a celebration of the Pacific Islanders' culture, featuring Hawaiian music, dance, and food. But the tragedy is also bringing organizations together at the festival to talk about long-term relief efforts.
They're based in Hawaii. It's part of a larger group called the Hawaii Community Foundation, and they are taking the lead in collecting the money, doing a plan on how they're going to get the funds distributed.
Among those raising awareness is former gold medal Olympic figure skater Christy Yamaguchi.
It's kind of home away from home for us. We've owned property there the last 10 plus years, so it's so gut-wrenching to see.
Christy believes her condo may still be standing, but not 100% sure. She says that's the least of her concerns. She's focused on helping families that lost loved ones.
It's going to take decades, I think, for this recovery and rebuild, and we definitely want to be a part of that.
Jasmine says as her large family copes with the loss, she's touched by the generosity of so many who want to help.
It's great to hear that these people care. They're saying like, hey, I'm not Hawaiian or I don't have any connection, but I have the means and I want to help.
Hawaiian officials are reminding people to be careful of scammers taking advantage of the tragedy. They're asking folks to donate to reputable organizations.
All week, we've been hearing stories of travelers canceling their trips to Maui or trying to get off the island. At the same time, airlines have been sending over much-needed supplies. At the Oakland airport, a humanitarian group is heading to Hawaii to help with the relief effort from the deadly Maui fires. Those in the group tell us they were in Lahaina earlier this week to assess the damage. They are going back now to send supplies over, and their mission is to make sure people are safe.
We'll be there on the ground. As well as providing whatever support they need, financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever we can do.
Coming up at 6:30, we'll have a live report from Maui as survivors start returning home. Meantime, we've been compiling information on how you can help. It's under top stories on KPIX.com.
A raging fire gutted a historical theater in Pittsburgh this morning. This is the Aenean Theater on East 10th Street. It had been standing for 88 years. The building had been abandoned, and at 6 o'clock this morning, firefighters were preparing for it to collapse. Crews responded with 4 alarms and briefly evacuated a nearby residence. They were able to get it under control around 7 in the morning and avoid a total collapse. There's no word yet on a possible cause. Nobody was injured in the fire.
In Antioch, a 14-year-old girl is in critical condition following a shooting overnight. Police first responded to reports of gunfire on West 6th Street near L Street at around 3 o'clock in the morning. They say it all started with a fight at the Antioch Marina, and that led to gunshots. A girl was shot and somebody drove her to the shopping center, called 911, then left. No word on any suspects.
Just one day after driverless cars got the pass to expand service in San Francisco, a whole fleet of cruise cars caused a disruption in North Beach. You can see several of the autonomous vehicles stopped in the middle of Grant Street at the Vallejo intersection, blocking traffic and confusing people just off of Columbus. Cruise, for its part, said they were sorry. They were having wireless connectivity issues and tried to make sure it doesn't happen again. Local Supervisor Aaron Peskin said, "Why do state commissioners think it's okay to put people in danger and create traffic chaos on our own neighborhood streets? We warned them, and they refuse to listen." Many San Franciscans have concerns about the cars affecting emergency responders, but state regulators voted on Thursday to give AV companies full access to the city around the clock. The vote followed heated public comment from both sides of the issue.
And I myself am blind. Driverless vehicles would be an amazing advantage for us getting around as a family with 2 car seats.
They're over here talking about safety, trotting out blind people with dogs and the very elderly and so forth.
The fire department hates them. They can't imagine there being 10 times more AVs out there.
Cruise and its main competitor Waymo have both said to get ready for more. They plan to expand service. Maui residents walking into a grim scene tonight in the wake of the deadly wildfires. The death toll at least 80.
Officials fear that number will rise as emergency workers sift through what's left of the historic town of Lahaina. Jeff Nguyen is live in Maui as people start heading back to their homes after the devastating wildfires. Jeff.
Andrea and Brian, right now police officers are telling folks they need to turn around on Highway 30. For most of the morning, residents of Lahaina were allowed in, but this afternoon, that all stopped. As Army soldiers walk through the rubble of charred buildings searching for any signs of life, residents say they're still in shock following the wildfires that destroyed their town.
I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a war zone, and you're just like, you don't even know how to feel.
Tuesday's fire in Lahaina wiped out 80% of the town. It incinerated more than 2,200 buildings, mostly residential, leaving thousands homeless.
We lost everything. Thank God that we still have each other and we're all alive and safe and accounted for. It's like we're the only things we have now because everything that we had in the past is gone.
People are still trying to make their way back to their homes to see if anything is left. Officials worry the death toll will soar as searchers pour through the scorched wreckage. For the survivors, an army of volunteers is delivering food, water, and clothing to shelters to help people like Joanne Hayashi, who had to jump into the ocean to escape the flames.
What's nice being here, you get to see people you didn't know were, made it, and it just keeps you busy so you're not dwelling on what am I going to do next? Where are my cats? Are they alive? Because you just be there crying.
The cause of the fire is still undetermined, but residents are demanding answers as to why Hawaii's extensive system of warning sirens never sounded.
No sirens went off, nothing. We just had to know that ourselves. It was fight or flight with no warning whatsoever.
Hawaii's Attorney General plans to lead a review of decision-making and policies surrounding the disaster. But for these residents, that's too little, too late. And at this point, the officers here tell us that only emergency vehicles and utility trucks are allowed into Lahaina. Anyone else is going to need special access. Andrew and Brian, we'll send it back to you.
Jeff, we've heard so many stories of survival, and you've heard a few since you've been out there. What are some of those stories?
You know, one of the women that we met is from Southern California. She grew up in the Whittier area. She lives and works here, and she was escaping when the flames were rushing through to the business where she was working. And she noticed as she was driving out, there were a number of people walking to try to get out. You see, Lahaina is basically a coastal port. So some people don't even have cars. They ride around in bikes. So she saw a man walking out carrying a tortoise trying to escape the flames. So she stopped, asked him to get into her car so that she could drive him out to safely. Turns out that tortoise belonged to another neighbor. So they drove around looking for the owner of the tortoise. That woman was hiding in a parking structure. And so she had with her her 2 birds as she was trying to escape. So ultimately she was able to get into the car. That second woman told us, had it not been for the Good Samaritan that she did not even know, her 2 birds, her tortoise, and herself would probably not have made it out alive.
Wow, that's
Guys?
amazing. Jeff, I want to ask you one more thing that a lot of people have asked me. I wonder if you've heard, does anybody know how the fire started?
So at this point, that is undetermined. Look, there has been a lot of criticism in terms of the warning system. Here in Hawaii, if you're familiar with, there is a huge system of sirens. There are no government reports that those sirens went off. The government did say that they did send out broadcast messages and phone messages, but when the power goes out, when you have huge infrastructure items like cell phone towers going down, you're not going to get that text message. You're not going to get that alert on your radio or your TV because you don't have access to that. On top of that, you don't have power. You know, one of the things about Maui is, if you're familiar, I can't really ask you to, my photographer to pan around, but a lot of the power poles here are those old wooden power poles. And so when the wind came through, some of them snapped. And then, you know, just like some of the fires that we had, like the Camp Fire in California, or the Thomas Fire, or the Woolsey Fire, you know, you're going to have sparks igniting. At this point, you know, they have not pinpointed that, but that is something that they are going to look into. In fact, the Attorney General's office says that they are going to look into all of that.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for your reporting. The infrastructure is tough there, that with the power and the internet and even the access roads in and out of there, there are very few in Maui. So it was a very difficult task for everyone there. Thank you so much. And a Denver family is speaking out after being forced to jump in the water to escape the flames.
You're going to be okay, Milo.
2 brothers and their mom had to wade in shoulder-deep water for 5 hours until it got dark.
This is like last resort time because the fire was like across the street at this point. Like it was that close. So we were like, yeah, we gotta jump in the ocean. I felt like it was my job to keep everyone else calm because my mom at that point was, you know, not doing well. Her breathing, I was super worried about. Her eyes were not good.
We're out of the water now.
When they got out, there was still fire all around them, but a fireman helped them to walk to a parking lot where police took them to safety. And we want to remind you again, we've been compiling information on how you can help, and it's under our top stories on KPIX.com.
Turning now to the state capitol, proving its insatiable appetite for taxes, California also takes money from the pensions of veterans, the only state in the union that fully taxes those pensions. But next week, that could change. More than 500,000 military veterans have left the state since 2020, many saying they're doing so to avoid the taxes. So to stop the exodus, lawmakers in the Democrat-controlled legislature are now backing new legislation that would repeal the tax for the next decade.
Just in time for the start of the school year in San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors held a back-to-school event at Thrive City. Warriors forward Trace Jackson Davis joined the fun and helped give away backpacks filled with supplies for the upcoming school year. San Francisco Unified heads back to school on August 16th.
That's the way to do it for now. Thanks for watching. See you back here at 11.
Until then, the news continues on CBS News Bay Area.